Title of this presentation of the Waltham Historical Society is Waltham Goes to War, the Homefront, 1939 to 1945. The image that Americans have of World War II is usually national in scope. We think of Presidents Roosevelt, Truman, Generals Eisenhower and MacArthur. We think of battles fought in Europe and in the Pacific. And the national effort is surely important. But what we don't usually think of is World War II was also fought at the local level in thousands of cities and towns all over America. World War II impacted all aspects of life in Waltham, from our schools to our recreation to our shopping. Even at the beginning of the war, Christmas lights were banned. In short, Waltham was fully mobilized. So this will be the story of how the people of Waltham did their part to win World War II. This is the Waltham News Tribune on December 8th, 1941. Of course, on December 7th, Japan had attacked Pearl Harbor at 7:55 in the morning. The attack went on until about 10 o'clock. It was a catastrophic defeat for the American Navy at Pearl Harbor. And the president, the following day, went to Congress and he delivered his famous speech with the famous line that he began the speech with: yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. What a lot of people don't know is the original line said, yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in world history. That was probably prepared by one of Roosevelt's speechwriters. Roosevelt read through the speech and he understood the power of words, and he crossed out world history and he put in a date which will live in infamy. The interesting thing in this Waltham News Tribune, if you look on the left, there's a subheadline. It says, place Waltham and Newton on wartime basis. So if Japan could attack Pearl Harbor, hundreds of miles away from Japan, why couldn't Germany attack the east coast of the United States? So at the beginning of the war, there was this real fear that Boston, Waltham, New York, any of the places around here could also get attacked. So, of course, in the Atlantic, you had the Battle of the Atlantic is raging. There were German U-boats off the coast of Massachusetts. There were German ships in the Atlantic. So at the beginning of the war, we're really not sure what's going to happen. Waltham Federal Bank, if you're not familiar with it, it used to be on Main Street, just beyond where the Merck apartments are now. So traveling west, it was just beyond Central Square before you got to the library. And as you'll see in a minute, they had big windows in the front, and they used to have displays of what was going on in Waltham. And this is a really nice quote. They put this in one of their advertisements. We are all civilian soldiers. In other words, everyone is taking part in the war. Okay, we're going to start by looking at the industrial contributions of Waltham, fighting against the Axis. Okay, so in 1939, Waltham has 138 factories, and they range from Waltham Watch Company to W.H. Nichols to Raytheon, Waltham Machine Works, B.C. Ames. It goes on and on. In the upper left-hand corner, you'll see the old Waltham Federal Savings Bank. And here's a display in the window, and the company here is J.L. Thompson. J.L. Thompson was a large factory located on South Street in Waltham. Its nickname was the Buckle Factory. And what did they manufacture? Rivets. So if you look at the exhibits here, you'd probably need a magnifying glass. Every one of these exhibits at J.L. Thompson has to do with rivets. And I'm sure you're all familiar with the song Rosie the Riveter. So right here in Waltham, J.L. Thompson is manufacturing rivets. And here's another display in the Waltham Federal Savings Bank. And it is for Waltham Watch Company. And they're churning out timing devices for the war. So if you look at the right at the middle, America's first watchmaker. So Waltham is the first place that machine-made watches were mass-produced. Okay, this picture right here, this is in Waltham Watch Company. And the man standing there with the paper in his hands, his name is Spike Dumaine. He was the son of the owner of Waltham Watch, Fred Dumaine. And next to him is Mayor Hanson, Arthur Hanson. And you can see the slogan, Waltham Works for Victory. And this is a banquet or a dinner at the watch company. But look at the posters in the background. And Waltham Watch, like all the companies in Waltham Watch is encouraging people take part of your part of your pay and purchase war bonds. Nice view of Waltham Watch Company. And during the war, they had approximately anywhere from 2,500 to 3,000 people working there. They're working around the clock. And here you see people assembling watches. Another room of Waltham Watch Company. The interesting thing here is look at the flag. So if you had someone in your family who was fighting in the war, you would display in your window of your house a blue star. If you had 2 or 3 people in the war, you'd have a flag, like one of those flags with 3 blue stars. If someone got killed, you would change the blue star to a gold star. So in this division of Waltham Watch Company, it looks like there are 8 former workers who are now participating, now fighting in World War II. Okay, war products, Waltham Watch Company. Take a look. Up at the top, some nice Waltham stopwatches. In the middle, you see some Waltham wristwatches. Those are military wristwatches, very collectible today. You'll see time fuses. You will see aircraft clocks, tank clocks, a ship chronometer down in the lower middle. So compasses. So Waltham during the war is 100% dedicated to war production, Waltham Watch Company. And in 1943, General Dwight David Eisenhower sends wire praising Waltham Watch plant. So what had happened, there was a battle was taking place in North Africa, and General Rommel, the German general, was defeated by Patton. And Eisenhower, if you read the story here, he said the timing devices helped bring the mighty North Africa German corps to its knees. Okay, the highest war award that a company could get is called an E award. So an E award stands for excellence, and it's something from the Army and Navy. So this is an article that appeared in the News Tribune, and you can see on the left, the watch firm is to receive an Army Navy E award. They were going to receive it. They got notification on January 9th, 1945. They would receive it on January 31st, the highest award you can get for going above and beyond what was expected. And the picture over there on the right, you would get a flag, an Army Navy flag to fly over your company. And every employee would also get a pin. And the workers here, if you look at the caption underneath the picture, had been working at Waltham Watch Company 55 years, 56 years. one of the men, 68 years, which brings you back almost to the very beginning of Waltham Watch Company. I think you'll recognize this picture here. This is Crescent Street. It hasn't changed a whole lot. Waltham Watch Company on the right. And on January 31st at 4 o'clock, the workers assembled on Crescent Street, and they were going to march down Crescent Street to Moody Street and receive the E Award at the old Embassy Theater, which was on Moody Street. So there they are assembling. I believe the man in the middle, the military man, is General Robert Sauford. The Army and Navy would always send out a high-ranking official when these awards were presented to officially present the award to the company. And here's the parade. Take a look at Waltham Watch Company in the back, decked out with American flags. Another view of the parade going down Crescent Street. And eventually they get to the Embassy Theater. So the Embassy was a wonderful theater, seating for over 2,000 people. So the Embassy Theater is packed, and Waltham Watch Company receives its E Award. Waltham's slogan during the war, Waltham times the attack, production for victory only. So everything made at Waltham Watch Company was devoted to winning the war. They did not manufacture civilian watches during the war. That will turn out to be one of the reasons the company falls 10 years after the war comes to an end. If people wanted to buy a watch, what kind of watch did they get? A civilian watch? A watch from Switzerland, because Switzerland was neutral. All of the American companies were dedicated 100% to war production. Nice view of the embassy on Moody Street. Okay, 1943. So this is a Gore place, and another Waltham company that received an E Award was Raytheon. And Raytheon produced a lot of the radar, components for radar that was used in World War II. And this is on the Waltham Common, and a company that you don't usually think of. When you think of major Waltham companies is W.H. Nichols. They're going to receive 5 E Awards. W.H. Nichols manufactured very sophisticated pumps that were used in ships and airplanes, things like that. In 1944, they had 834 employees. They were located on Wood Avenue, just past Waltham Watch Company. And as I said, they received 5 E Awards from the US government. Okay, you might recognize this. This is the old IBEW Hall on Main Street in Waltham. And if you look at the sign, Mid-War Conference of the Waltham Chamber of Commerce. So the Chamber of Commerce, a business organization, is having a dinner here. And if you look at the posters in the back, they're all about speeding up production to win the war. So, as you know, we were referred to, the United States was referred to as the arsenal of democracy. We were going to produce the airplanes, the tanks, the bombs, the guns, all of the supplies needed by the Allies to win the war. So the Waltham companies are producing in this, and they've got to speed up production. And if you look at the poster on the left, it says, "Victory waits when we are late." In other words, don't be late for work. Don't call in sick. Speed up production. Okay, Waltham battles the Axis, buying war bonds and savings stamps. The war is going to cost enormous amount of money. So how is money going to be raised? Well, taxes went up, and the US government also sold war bonds and savings stamps. Altogether, the US government sold $185 billion in war bonds and savings stamps. So they raised money for the war. They earned 2.9% interest, so almost 3%, and they matured in 10 years. Okay, so raising money for the war. Building in the background here is the old car barn that was located on Main Street, Upper Main Street. Take a look at the bus. The Waltham Community War Fund. Give, double, the world's in trouble. So all kinds of organizations looking to collect money for the war. Nice picture here. This is the bus. And if you look in the background, you are right near the corner of Main and Moody Street. So this is Main Street in the background. The Common would be right behind these men and women on the right. Okay, back to the Waltham Federal Savings Bank. The display window, back the attack, buy extra war bonds. And once again, this is the Waltham Federal Bank, and there's going to be a big bond drive. Give our boys the edge, sign up your bond pledge. Okay, we have to remember, so this is a war that involves everyone. The whole country is mobilized. And here you see a couple of Boy Scouts, and they would be selling war bonds. They'd be going door to door. They took part in scrap drives, paper drives, bond drives, and they would try to get people to pledge to buy bonds. Okay, so September 1943. Waltham is going to have a huge war bond auction planned for Grover Cronin's parking lot. And here's the Waltham News Tribune. Waltham shooting for bomber gold tonight at huge war bond auction. And the way that you gain admittance to it, you had to show the stub of an application for a war bond or purchase $1 in stamps at the entrance booth. If you did that, you would be admitted to the war bond auction. Once you were in there, you could bid on prizes, and you would bid depending on how many war bonds and war stamps you would buy. Some of the prizes, so 200 prizes were offered. The old Hathaway Bakery donated a decorated cake. Gordon's Liquors, 6 bottles of wine. Candyland, a candy store on Moody Street, a candy basket. Publix Market donated a ham, 2 baskets of fruit, 3 bags of groceries. And there were even rumors, if you read this, you can see it over on the far right. There were rumors that there was going to be butter available to bid on, and that was in real short supply during World War II. So here's the rally. It's being held in Grover Cronin's parking lot. And this is one of the booths at the rally. In the background, you can't see it, but this is at night, so that would be the Charles River in the background. There you can see the river. Donations for Waltham War Bond auction. And at the auction, selling bonds. And look at the crowd there. If you look at the bandstand up at the upper left-hand corner, you'll see the Waltham High School band up there. You can see the Charles River in the back. A lot of Navy personnel in the back there. Okay, now we're on Moody Street, and this is right outside of a department store. It was called Park Snows. It was kind of like a Macy's type store or a Filene's type store. And right out on Moody Street, Park Snows has set up a place to buy war bonds and stamps. Okay, so what else is going on during the war? Well, Waltham men and women are going to answer the call. They're going to fight in the war. And just very briefly, that's my father there over on the right. So he was a student at Boston College, and Uncle Sam came calling, and he had to leave school and join the Army Air Force. And he was stationed over in the Pacific Ocean. His brother, my Uncle Donald, was stationed in Europe. A lot of women fought in the war also. You don't usually think of this, but if you look in the background there, the building on the left, that's the old Waltham Theater, the music hall. That's now Mr. McElroy's tuxedo shop. That's all been restored. And the truck in the front on the door, it says BC Ames. BC Ames was a company on Lexington Street that produced measuring devices. Their slogan was BC Ames, Masters of Measurement. And you might wonder what Zonta International is. It's an organization that promoted equal rights for women. Okay. Waltham News Tribune, 1944. Look at the headline underneath the prisoner's headline. Waves coming to Waltham for 1 week recruit drive. Okay, so what does WAVES stand for? Women accepted for volunteer emergency service. They were women who were going to be going into the U.S. Navy, and they would be doing desk jobs, a lot of the non-combat roles, all together in Waltham. Uh, and by the way, they were paid the same as men. By 1944, 38 women from Waltham had volunteered to serve in the Waves. And this is in Waltham. I'm not sure what building this is, but it's the Waves. You can see the woman's hat on the far right, U.S. Navy. And another group in Waltham were the WACs. It starts out as WAAC, Women's Auxiliary Army Corps. Eventually, that's shortened to Women's Army Corps. And this is also in Waltham. And I believe, I could be wrong, I believe this is in Grover Cronin's. And this is the Embassy Theater. This is the staircase at the Embassy Theater. And they're signing women up for the Women's Auxiliary Army Corps. We're back at the Embassy Theater here. So at the embassy, these are women who have volunteered to go into the service in the Women's Army Corps. One of the casualties of the war took place early. It was um, September 28th, and Mayor Arthur Hanson was involved in a war bond drive on Waltham Common, and he died at the rally. He was fatally stricken with a heart attack. He died at the rally. Mayor Hanson was a World War I hero. He fought at the Battle of Chateau Thierry, and the commanding officer was shot. And before he died, he turned to Lieutenant Hanson and he said, Lieutenant Hanson, the command is forward. See the boys through. And Hanson took command of this group of soldiers and was successful. Mayor Hanson is now buried at Mount Peak Cemetery. And the epitaph on his gravestone is the famous line, "Command is forward." This is his funeral, and you'll probably recognize this. This is the IBW Hall on Main Street in Waltham. Really nice picture. This is the funeral procession of Mayor Hanson. Look at Waltham City Hall draped in black. Look at the other corner, the large building on the left. That used to be a furniture store, Clarkson's Furniture. And you can see some World War I veterans marching in the front. Few interesting things here. If you look in the lower left-hand corner, there's a young boy selling newspapers. He's got his bicycle, he's got a basket in front filled with newspapers. You don't see that anymore. And if you also look on the far left, you'll see a little sign, and it says 128. So Route 128 is not built until the 1950s. Route 128 used to be Lexington Street, and when you came to Lexington and Maine, you would go down Main to Newton Street and pick up 128. So if you were going to the Cape, you would go through all the different little cities and towns. This is the funeral of Mayor Hanson. Okay, Red Cross and civil defense volunteers. Once again, everyone is taking part in the war. Okay, and this is was put out to the citizens of Waltham. And this is by the Red Cross, and they're looking for donations. And they mention in the letter, if you can see it, that the Red Cross is the only organization that has access to war prisoners held by Japan and Germany. And the man in charge of this, John Sweet, who lived in Piety Corner on Clark Lane in Waltham. So people got involved in the Red Cross. They used to collect money in schools for the Red Cross. And here's the Embassy Theater. Once again, the Red Cross, a blood drive. And they also did all kinds of training if there was an emergency in Waltham, how to help people. The man in charge of the Red Cross, his name was Dr. Frederick McDonald. Um, yeah, they collected money for soldiers, they held blood drives, they ran swimming classes for high school seniors, and here they're teaching first aid. Okay, another group, Waltham Civil Defense. And they would take girls and boys, senior citizens, anyone who was interested in taking part in civil defense could sign up. And you can see some of the jobs that people could volunteer for. This is a Grove of Cronin's. Once again, civil defense and air raid precautions. So preparing for air raids just in case we get attacked during the war. Really interesting picture here. Picture in the back is it's Waltham divided into zones. So if we got attacked, the places you could go, um, fire stations, places that would be safe places to go. And you'll recognize this, Waltham City Hall in the background there. And this is the Waltham Auxiliary Police, the Civil Defense Committee. And they're safeguarding against sabotage. They were trained in judo, in wrestling. They would wear gas masks if necessary, and how to handle emergencies like an air raid. World War II is the only war in American history where products were rationed. So you couldn't just go to the store and purchase meat or sugar uh, butter or virtually anything like that, or tires. Things were rationed. And every month you would get ration stamps. And you would use the ration stamps along with money to go to Waltham Supermarket or the A&P or the First National, and maybe you're buying a pound of bacon, you would pay for it, but you also had to have stamps issued by the US government. And this is a war ration book. Some of you might remember the name Marie Lucille Hanna. That is the legendary history teacher at North Junior and Central Junior High School. I believe that is Lucille Hanna's mother. And those are some of Miss Hanna's ration stamps that she never used. She saved them and donated those to the Waltham Historical Society. Okay, teachers and students also fighting the Axis. Waltham News Tribune. Take a look on the right. 250 teachers gather for outline of defense effort. You can see the other headlines here, all interesting. 1944, there were 31 teachers serving in the military. Out of the 31, 15 were women. Okay, and this is the Waltham Federal Savings Bank. And you're looking down towards the common. And you can see a couple of young boys here. And the exhibit, Waltham Students Will Do It Again. And they're selling war bonds and war savings stamps. And you'll probably recognize this building. This is on Lexington Street. And this is St. Mary's High School. And they're having a ceremony there, and you can see the flag with a blue star on it. And apparently 322 graduates of St. Mary's High School were now in the military during World War II. Okay, even the young kids are involved. And this is in Waltham. Unfortunately, the picture was never labeled, but you could see a soldier here with his Jeep, and the kids must have been let out of school to pose with him. South Junior High School raising a flag with a star on it. Probably on the other side is how many South Junior graduates were fighting in World War II. This is the Boy Scouts, and they used to hold scrap drives. So they're going to they'd collect any old scrap iron or metal of any kind, and it would be recycled and used for bombs and supplies for the war. That's in Waltham. Once again, the picture was not labeled as to where it is. Here's the Waltham Salvage Committee, November 4th, 1943. And they're having a newspaper drive, collecting newspapers to recycle them. Look at the first page towards the bottom of it. Our quota for Waltham, 90 tons of newspaper, enough to fill 6 freight cars. Okay. So Waltham goes to work. Here's some young boys collecting newspapers in Waltham. I believe this is Crescent Street. Once again, young boys collecting newspapers. In the background, you see the Waltham Common. Okay, and then on Moody Street. So Moody Street, of course, Waltham's business district. And his Grover Cronin's. On the left, as of today, 51 members of our organization are in service of their country. That's just one store. And there's Grover Cronin's right by the Charles River. So right by the bridge, and encouraging people to buy war bonds and saving stamps. And just a little further down the street on the same side as Grover Cronin's was Park Snow's. Building is still standing. It looks exactly the same. Parade on Moody Street. And the float going by, Park Snow's float, encouraging people to buy war bonds and saving stamps. And if you look at the map in the middle, you'll see a Nazi spider and a Japanese spider moving towards the United States. What are you doing about this war? Everyone has to participate. This Park Snows selling war bonds and stamps right on Moody Street. And this is a parade on Moody Street. And if you look at the occupant of the wagon, it's Uncle Sam. Uncle Sam riding to victory, Ricebergs, which was a clothing store on Moody Street. Embassy Theater during World War II. And if you look at the car in the back, you'll see a coffin with Hitler in it, a dummy of Hitler in it. Okay, the only major construction project that took place in Waltham during World War II was the rebuilding of the Moody Street Bridge. There it is. So over on the far right, you'll see the old Francis Cabot Lowell Mill. And the building on the left, that's the old Middlesex Hotel, also called the 105 Club. That burned down, I believe, in 1972. The Riverwalk is there today. Nice view of the rebuilding of the Moody Street Bridge. Okay, so you look at all these pictures of Waltham in the war and you think, wow, every waking moment people are taking part in the war effort. But it's simply not true. Life goes on. People still went to school. People still went shopping. People still had birthday parties. Life goes on in Waltham. For example, down at the Charles River, Forest Grove, kids and adults still went swimming at the Forest Grove beach. Great picture there. There's the Forest Grove beach. During the winter, boys still played ice hockey. This is the Waltham High School team. I believe this is 1943. The man on the left, a lot of you will have heard his name, Coach Walter Bryn, is a young man, and he coached Waltham right into the 1970s. And the unusual thing here is look where the team is practicing, outdoors. So Waltham doesn't have a rink. They played their games at the old Boston Arena, but you had to wait till the ponds would freeze before you could actually practice. Waltham High School football at Leary Field. At the time, it's called the Athletic Field. The coach is Jack Leary. And look at the size of the crowd. Okay, the war comes to an end. The soldiers return. In 1944, here's the Waltham News Tribune. The D-Day, invasion on. And you'll see the picture there. That's General Eisenhower. And he actually prepares two statements. One of which, if the landing in Normandy was successful, one of which, if the landing was unsuccessful. And of course, it was successful. Notice that this is an extra edition of the Waltham News Tribune. It was such a big event, they printed a second edition on that day. And in April of 1945, President Roosevelt had been in office since 1933. And Roosevelt passes away. Waltham stores to close all day tomorrow. This is a real interesting news Tribune. So president had died, but look at the headline: Two Waltham infantrymen missing in Europe. And you can see the pictures on the right. The man on the left, his name is James Chambers. He worked at W.H. Nichols, and we have at the Historical Society, we have the obituary, his obituary. We have uh, at his funeral, we have the eulogy that was delivered. But that's Jim Chambers. The new president, Harry Truman, job ahead, no less important. The interesting thing here: subdued and silent Waltham marks Germany's surrender. So Japan is still fighting, so the war's not over yet. Grover Cronin's When Germany is Defeated puts out this full-page ad in the News Tribune. Mein Kampf plunging to earth on fire. Hitler's book, My Struggle. And Japan will surrender in August of 1945. And the war is over. The News Tribune headlines, VJ, victory over Japan. On December 7th, 1945, the News Tribune published this front page: 138 Waltham soldiers paid the ultimate sacrifice and were killed. 5,415 Waltham soldiers, Waltham residents, took part in the war. And here's their pictures, some of their pictures. The Tribune put out an edition. They have all of the pictures of the men who died in World War II. And some of them they just look so incredibly young because they were so incredibly young. After the war, General MacArthur will be fired by President Truman during the Korean War, and General MacArthur will come to Waltham after he returns home from Korea. And the sign on Waltham City Hall, "Welcome General MacArthur," and you can see him getting out of the car in the front there. And right after that, the Northwest School in Waltham is renamed the MacArthur School. And when General MacArthur came to Waltham, he was presented on the left with a Waltham watch. And the man on the left, that's Rocco Calora, who was the head of the veterans. And General MacArthur on the right, he went up to Forestry to the Army Corps of Engineers. At the time, it was a Murphy Army Hospital, and he met with soldiers who were wounded during the war. So here's General MacArthur shaking a soldier's hand. And one of my favorite pictures, this is the Waltham Common, and the names of all the Waltham men and women who fought in World War I and in World War II. Waltham Honor Roll for God and country. So you could go up to this and find your grandfather, your grandmother, your father, whoever, your uncle. You could find any of their names on this series of billboards that used to stand on Waltham Common. And that concludes the program. So I hope you enjoyed it. And if you're interested, consider joining the Waltham Historical Society. Thank you very much. Good night.